Good morning, everyone. My name is Mr. Farrell, and today we will be discussing the three branches of American government. We're going to discuss the purposes of them and what roles they play in government itself. So these are the objectives of the lesson. What are the three branches? What are the purposes of the branches? What roles do they play? And is one more powerful than the other? So before we begin, here's a little bit of background information. The three branches of the United States government were created in 1787 with the signing of the United States Constitution. The goal of the three branches is to govern and separate the government. The term separation of powers was originally coined by the 18th century philosopher Montesquieu. The framers, or writers, of the United States Constitution were inspired by Montesquieu's ideas and decided to separate the government into three sections. Those sections are the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. This separation of powers prevents any one person or piece of government from becoming too powerful. It creates a system of checks and balances, meaning that one branch cannot run without the other, and no branch is more powerful or more important than another. Pictured below are the three branches of the United States government. The first is the legislative branch, which makes the laws, and is made up of Congress, Senate, and the House of Representatives. Next is the executive branch, which carries out the laws, and is made up of the president, the vice president, and the president's cabinet. Lastly, the judicial branch, which interprets the laws, and is made up of the Supreme Court and other federal courts. So first, the legislative branch. Pictured to the right here is where the legislative branch meets in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Hill. The legislative branch is referred to as Congress, and is made up of two parts, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate contains 100 members, 2 from each state. Senate members serve a term of 6 years, whereas the House of Representative members serve a term of just 2 years. The House is made up of 435 members, which is determined by the size of the state and the electoral votes each state has. The legislative branch is responsible for determining which proposed bills should be passed and created into laws. Congress meets to discuss the proposed bills, ultimately deciding if the bill should be passed to the President of the United States and signed in as a law. Next is the executive branch. In this pretty recognizable image is a picture of the White House, which is where the President and a majority of the executive branch resides. The executive branch has the power to enforce laws. It is made up of the President of the United States, the Vice President, and the President's cabinet. The President is elected every 4 years through the Electoral College system, which will be further discussed in the next class. The President has the power to sign or veto proposed bills. If he or she signs the bill, then the bill becomes a law. If the bill is vetoed, it is sent back to the legislative branch, where it is either amended and rewritten or killed altogether. If a bill is killed, it is no longer in discussion in the legislative branch. So next is the judicial branch. The judicial branch meets in the Supreme Courthouse in Washington, D.C., which is pictured here on the right. The branch is made up of the federal judiciary. The judicial branch is headed by the Supreme Court, which is made up of the 9 justices appointed by the President. Each justice serves a term for life as long as they have good behavior, or until they step down. The main goal of the judicial branch is to interpret the law, listening to cases dealing with the Constitution. Only the most serious cases are listened to by the Supreme Court, and their decision is absolute and final, meaning that there are no appellate courts, and so their say is final. So in summary, the legislative branch proposes the bills, sending them to the President and the executive branch, who oversees and carries out the bills and ultimately decides if the bills become laws. Lastly, the judicial branch interprets the laws and ensures just treatment and sentencing. For further details on how a bill becomes a law, please feel free to visit this link here and watch the video. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions on the assignments, feel free to ask. Good luck.